number one of our lower bracket semis. It is Eselore on the Aggro Druid and Mugi on the Jade Druid. Amnesiac, how does this matchup play out? Who's favored here?
So Aggro Druid's a little bit favored. Not astronomically. I think it's like 55%, if I remember the data right.
Okay, so pretty close.
A lot of it's going to come down to, I'd say Jade Druid almost never wins the games that they don't have Spreading Plague and is usually favored in the games that they do. But for Eselore, he's probably thinking, all right, how can I ever close the game before Spreading Plague is going to come down? So his hand would be insane in an Aggro Druid matchup. He has a lot of early things to do. But in terms of actual pressure, he doesn't have anything in his hand with more than one attack. He's really going to want to be picking up the buff minions, because Druid has a really hard time dealing with consolidated larger threats, but a wide board can get taken care of by Swipe. It's weak to Spreading Plague. So he's going to really need to find the buff cards, Mark of Yashiraj, Mark of the Lotus, Power of the Wild, those types of things.
Yeah, and then if he's running cards like Bittertide Hydra later on, he will absolutely want to find that. But this is a different Druid type for Jade Druid than it used to be. Old Jade Druid used to be a lot more anti-control with much higher end cards like Medivh the Guardian, like Kuhn the Forgotten King, and now we've got a, I would say, more anti-aggro style of Druid with the Oaken Summons and the Ironwood Golems. You've got the Branching Paths, which could be great stabilizing tools later on. So if Mugibaby is able to get past the early assault, Eselore's going to run out of resources naturally. Mugi should be able to stabilize from there.
Yeah, so Mugibaby's deck is just a little bit different. It has a lower Jade density to it because it doesn't play Jade Spirit. And the reason it can't play Jade Spirit is because it wants to play the card in the far right of his hand, Oaken Summons, which gains you 6 armor and summons you a 4 mana or less minion from your deck. And it's very common when you're playing that card, you play 2 Ironwood Golems, which is just a 4 mana 3/6 taunt, very well statted, or you play Fandral, which is one of the best cards in Druid. So it takes a very defensive stance in the early game like that and through the mid game. And as a result, you do suffer in matchups like Raza Priest. Against Raza Priest, you want to pressure them rather than just play defensively. But in a matchup like this, pulling out a 3/6 can be huge to stifle pressure early.
It absolutely can, and considering Mugibaby has access to that coin, he picks up a lesser Jasper Spellstone, which he could use for some removal later on. It seems like he's picking up some of those good early anti-aggro tools. But there's one of those key cards now in Eselore's hands, that Mark of Yashiraj, to build up some bigger minions on the board, make it more difficult for the Jade Druid just to get that clear started.
Yeah, so Mark of Yashiraj is obviously powerful when it lands, but it's way more so powerful in a deck like Aggro Druid than it would be in probably any other deck in the game, because Aggro Druid almost never has more than 3 cards in hand. So when you think about the implication of gaining an extra card when you only have 2, you increase your option range by like 50% pretty much. So that's a huge deal, whereas if you're playing a control deck and you draw your 8th card in your hand as opposed to 7, you did not increase your option range by as much. So that's why Mark of Yashiraj is so good in the deck. Obviously it lands a lot because you play cheap beasts, but just having one extra card of gas, 1 more minion to play, can often push that deck over the edge.
Yeah, and it is the only draw option for the deck, so really impactful. Very important that Eselore managed to find it early on. He's putting on some significant pressure, but there we do see Mugibaby picking up that Spreading Plague off the top this turn. He's going to be a couple of turns away from actually playing it, though, so if Eselore can't amount enough pressure, put out enough damage to Mugi's face before that Spreading Plague comes down, like you said earlier on, Amnesiac, that could be enough to get it done.
That was a lit Jade Blossom draw. That's really good here.
I
think his only decision point is if he wants to Spellstone. He cannot, because generally a 1/5 is going to stop more damage than the minion will have. But since he's going into a buff turn or potentially Savage Roar and he might not want to take too much damage, I think it's pretty reasonable to just Jade Blossom and Spellstone. But I think he's certainly going to want to ramp to the Spreading Plague. If he doesn't, his opponent could just have Living Mana next turn, and then he wouldn't have access to it when he needs it. His opponent could just go wide and then have Roar. He needs to taunt next turn, or he'll die to a lot of combinations of cards. As we can see from Eselore's hand, if he doesn't ramp to it, he'll probably still have time to play it on turn 6. But knowing the game plan from Druid, there would be no reason to not. And I like his decision to take care of the captain, keeping the board clean. He's going to have 1 fewer token this way, but the Spreading Plague is still going to be lights out good. I don't think he has to worry about that.
Ooh, there's the Savage Roar for Eselore. I do like that he's just going ahead and using it now. Sometimes amateur players can get a little bit too greedy with their Savage Roars, with their Bloodlusts as well. AoE damage like that, and they want to save it until it's a finishing blow. That's not necessary in this case. This is just a Savage Roar that's going to deal 10 damage.
Yeah. I'd say it happens a lot more with Bloodlust. People never Bloodlusted for damage. I think people with Savage Roar, they look at it, they're like, I don't have anything else to do with my mana, I'll just hit him. Yeah. But Eselore does have an interesting decision point here. I think he's pretty dead to the Spreading Plague, I'm not sure if pushing face or killing the minion was better. He would have missed 3 damage but preserved a 3-2 in play. It was pretty much equivalent in that case. But this is going to be tough. I think he's going to need a Living Mana draw, a Bittertide Hydra draw, and not just a buff, I don't think. I don't think that'll get him through here.
And even still, then Mugibaby could armor for as much as 12 with that branching paths. The Jade Behemoth represents another taunt. And we even have the option to nourish for some card draw if we get to that point in the game. It's just not looking good for Eselore. He took the game pretty quickly. It just wasn't fast enough.
Yeah, this swipe is going to be lights out. The attacks from Eselore make sense. If he didn't make those attacks, then Mugibaby could have just had branching paths for attack and cleaned up a lot of things. But it looks like this is a full clear swipe, trade. Yeah, so this is a full clear. So Eselore's almost certainly going to need to draw either Living Mana or Bittertide Hydra. I'm not sure if Bittertide Hydra would even get in here at this point. Living Mana would give him a shot. That second swipe is a pretty big pickup, but... Whoa. He went face. Okay. Yeah. No, he didn't.
Okay, there you go.
There wasn't much upside. The difference between 30 and 29 was quite negligible there. I would have been surprised. But also, there wasn't much punish. But yeah, Eselore, knowing that he needs to draw Living Mana, is going to hold back this one, too. It doesn't really do much. Okay, that's, yeah.
That's going to be game, even if the Living Mana does come down. Now there's no combination of cards for Eselore that could get through all of these taunt minions. So Mugibaby, well, this one was close for the first couple of turns. Does look like he's going to be able to wrap it up.
Eselore not drawing a buff ever. He didn't see any Mark of Lotus or any Power of the Wild.
Yeah.
Was just, he didn't get it. Like, he came close. He had him all the way down to 9 one turn. Considering he never buffed his minions, if he were to have a buff on turn 3 or 4, probably would have amounted to around 10 damage. So he could have certainly realistically gotten there. And Mugibaby's draw wasn't even particularly bad. Actually, a big thing about Mugibaby's draw that seemed unimportant was he actually just had Jade Idol on turn 1, which let him kill that Enchanted Raven. If that Raven had stuck around, would have dealt like 6 to 8 more damage. So a lot of little things went Mugibaby's way. He didn't have a spectacular draw, but he had enough. And he probably wouldn't have been able to beat a lights out draw from Eselore this game, but he beat what he had.
And Eselore had the wide board, but like you're saying, he didn't have the Power of the Wild, didn't have the Mark of the Lotus for the follow-up, and then just a single swipe was able to take everything off of the board. So Mugibaby going to put on a lot of pressure here. This is 16 damage, not quite enough, but next turn that will be game.
He did not play around Pyroblast.
No, he sure didn't. That is irresponsible at best.
That's disappointing. He could have had like Swashbuckler, Bait, Pyroblast. Oh, no, Babbling Book. It gets mage cards. Yeah, he could have gone Babbling Book, Bait. Pre-nerf Innervate, of course.
Okay,
Pyroblast.
Yeah,
that would have been good.
Of course. Well, we're at it. Let's just bring Fiery War Axe back down to 2 mana and call it a day there. It's going to be Mugibaby with game number 1, the Jade Druid versus the Aggro Druid. It really teaches you, like, how to balance a checkbook and pay taxes, so it's probably not going to be useful, but there's got to be somebody.
Eselore opting to mulligan the Spellbreaker. That is a card that's purely for this matchup, or maybe not purely, but the predominant reason that card has been included is for the dealing with the possessed lackey, I think it's called, and dealing with the Void Lord that subsequently comes out of it. So to see him mulligan it, I don't disagree with it. You do need the pressure into the Spellbreaker. You can't just silence and then it's lights out, game over. You need to be dealing damage as you go. The thing that really interested me was he kept the backstab, which is actually going to work out pretty well versus this Mistress of Mixtures, but I feel like a lot of the time you're keeping a card down by keeping that backstab. And there are things like SI7 Agent, even just Coin Dagger poking this 2/2 twice would deal with it.
Yeah.
So while it did work out, I would have liked to see him look for more proactive plays because you run out of gas extremely quickly in this matchup as the Rogue.
You do. You need to find those Elven Minstrels. You need to find more of that mid to late game pressure because Mugibaby's deck is going to have so much efficient removal. You see that Defile in the hand. There's copies of Hellfire. It's just very easy for him to find a full clear throughout the course of this game. And Eselore is going to need to be the one that can provide that consistent pressure post AoE.
So Eselore saw that Mugibaby kept 1 in the mulligan, and he opted to not deckhand with the backstab on turn 1. I think at that point there was no reason to backstab. He could have waited. He could have potentially drawn Edwin Van Cleef, and then that could have been bigger. I think the interesting thing was just that he chose not to play the deckhand. It was weak to Defile, and if you knew he had Mortal Coil, which he does because there's open deck list, it could have been weak to that as well. But it would have been an extra 3-2 in play here, which is a lot of damage. And you have to go quickly. Usually you have to kill you have to be in a position where if the rogue or if the warlock takes a turn to develop the possessed lackey on 5, you kill them. You need to try and work towards that. So I like taking risks in the early game personally, because they'll keep the possessed lackey. They'll keep cards like Hellfire. They don't always necessarily have that Defile on 2 or that Mortal Coil. So I personally gamble a lot in the early game so that if I get to the mid game, I'm in those typical positions where I say I can definitely win from here.
Yeah, if the Warlock's going to be life tapping on 2, if they're playing the Kobold Librarians, they're just escalating the Rogue's damage turn. So here for Eselore, maybe should have gone for that deckhand a little bit earlier on, but Mugibaby's list is very, very heavy anti-aggro. We've got copies of Dirty Rat. You're seeing the Plated Beetle. This is not a Spirit Singer Umbra Doomguard cube lock list. This is going to be strictly Void Lords. Taunt up everything, and once that first Void Lord hits, if there's no Spellbreaker for Eselore, it's likely that can just represent game over in pretty much every scenario.
Do they have any copies of cubes or anything like that in this deck?
There's probably cubes,
okay,
but there's no Doomguards, there's no Umbra.
Yeah, there's a few variants that have been coming out. There's the traditional cube lock with Doomguards. You make 5/7 charging men and you attack them a bunch. Then there's the more defensive control lock list that doesn't generally play cubes or faceless manipulators. It just plays the bare bones, lackeys, void lords, and then plays a lot of extra defense. And then there's kind of the hybridized void lord the deck, as I like to call it affectionately. And that's what Muzzy's going to be playing at Worlds. And that's just cutting the Doomguards from cube lock, but keeping the cube package. And basically you just make void lords until they lose.
All right, well, fun fact, because we're in the top 4, lists are actually revealed now, so we can spoil some of these cards in here. There are no cubes.
No cubes. It's pretty bread and butter control warlock. Rin, the first disciple. I think Hoy was the one who originally made this deck, or at least he was the one who popularized it. And it's seen a lot of success. I think people like this deck a lot because they believe it wins in the Warlock mirror. But interestingly enough, Void Lord the deck beats this deck in the Warlock mirror.
Yeah, this one's really interesting. 1 Siphon Soul, 2 Twisting Nethers, so even more removal represented in the deck than in your average control warlock. But here we do see Mugibaby got that lackey down on board, and the silence was there for Eselore. Mugibaby already down at a pretty low 13 life here. He's going to have some ground to make up, but the Hellfire is going to be a great start. Now Eselore is going to be the one needing to find that consistent pressure yet again.
Yeah, I think Mugibaby is quite favored from here, I want to say. Him not getting the battle cry from this Mistral is brutal. He'll get the cards back with the Shadow Step, but ideally he would have been playing it for its combo Shadow Step and replaying it. Maybe if he was able to weave in a Prince as well. I always personally feel really bad when I have to draw without my cards being Princed. The worst is when you Elven Minstrel and you draw the Prince and you're like, really? Come on now. But
hey, better late than never.
I think it's going to be really hard for him to actually turn the corner. It's going to be hard for him to land a Bone Mare. The way I see him winning this is maybe swashbucklering some value or just a couple Vile Spine Slayers on some key minions. But one thing that I really like about Mugibaby's deck is the inclusion of 2 Twisting Nethers. The thing about Twisting Nether in Warlock, especially this type of Warlock that doesn't cheat out their Void Lords as much, is you can just Twisting Nether on 8, clear the board, they do their thing, and then you play Void Lord. Void Lord is 18 health of taunt. It is very difficult to kill. So that's actually a pretty reasonable setup. Whereas before, if you Twisting Nethered and they redeveloped, it was like, well, I'm not in a great spot now. But you are in a great spot because you can play Void Lord, and then you have either N'Zoth the Corruptor or Blood Reaver Gul'dan to post that.
This deck just has so much game against aggro if it finds the right cards. I could also see maybe Eselore being able to take this one if he can stick a Bone Mare onto a minion and Mugibaby doesn't find that removal, if he doesn't find the Nethers, if he doesn't find another Hellfire, and Eselore can go wide, because Mugibaby's hand right now is not as reactive as it could be, but that's the thing, though. Once you stick that Void Lord, if Void Lord gets killed, then you just have N'Zoth on turn 10, and there's really nothing that the Rogue can do.
If Eselore was setting on Leroy Shadow Step, then he'd be in an okay spot here, but given his hand, the best he can do is Vile Spine and put Mugibaby to 8, and then all Mugibaby has to do is Siphon Soul this and then go Void Lord into N'Zoth. Though he does know that there's a copy of Spellbreaker in the deck, so it's somewhat risky to fully bank on this Void Lord. He could choose the Dirty Rat if he wants, maybe try and get the Leroy out. Bone Mare's really likely. This Bone Mare's been in his hand since, like, turn 5, I want to say.
Yeah, it's been a while. There is only the 1 Spellbreaker in the deck, so we did see Eselore play that on the Possessed Lackey already, so this Void Lord is going to be safe, except maybe from that second Vile Spine Slayer.
Yeah, and then the Zoth, and it brings everything back.
It's just,
He's going to risk the
nasty.
Dirty Rat. I wonder if this ever would have gotten him killed.
That's a
I
good
don't
question.
think so. The biggest thing it could have pulled was a 5/5. There was no random card in the hand or anything. So it seems reasonable enough to me.
Because there was the Siphon Soul behind it, Mugibaby knew he could clear anything that came out, so Bone Mare being probably the biggest target in the deck remaining. But with the Void Lord on turn 9, N'Zoth's going to bring back the Mistress of Mixtures, the Plated Beetles, and the Void Lord if it dies. Eselore does not have any Spellbreakers remaining in the deck. He doesn't have damage from hand. That's just pretty much going to be it.
Yeah, this Void Lord's lights out. Good card.
That's dirty.
I gave it a 4. I wonder what Trump gave it.
4 out of 5?
No, we did 4 out of 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good call then.
I also gave Vulgar Homunculus a 4. I still think that card's a 4, even though it doesn't see play. We found, like, the only way where that card wouldn't get played.
Yeah, where all the control warlocks.
Well, yeah, I didn't think Possessed Lackey was going to be good. Come on.
I mean, well, you were playing, what, at the beginning, like a Zoo deck with,
yeah,
without Keleseth, playing the Homunculus and the Demon
It's just worse
Fires?
than Keleseth. That deck had, like, over 100,000 games on HS Replay, though. I was shaping the meta. Mugi chose to Twisting Another. Yeah. As one does.
Doing the job.
Chose to Nether. This is quite over. I'm going to be honest. I like Eselore playing it out. He's got a lot of heart.
He did that yesterday, too.
He's gonna need more than heart. He's gonna need cards that can do things onto the board.
Okay, so Swashbuckler and find
Valera.
Doom.
No, wait, we're not in the Rogue Mirror. Okay, I got nothing.
We're gonna find Doom, and then we're gonna Doom for like 7 cards.
Somehow he needs to kill this Void Lord, get Mugibaby to N'Zoth, then Swashbuckler play the Doom. He has another Swashbuckler in the deck, which could get Cabal Trafficker. He could, like, Jiraxis him this game, I guess.
He could.
You get Cabal Trafficker, you get Jiraxis.
Yeah.
And then he's probably teched in the Sunfury Protectors for the handlock pan out. You know, that's what I do.
He can't get the Trafficker and the Blood Reaver Gul'dan if he still needs the Doom.
Maybe he doesn't need the Doom.
This guy's toast.
It's so close. 9 health, -4.
Right there.
It's 5. It's close.
It's only 18 total
This is a good
points of
effort
taunt.
made. I respect this.
You know what? Eselore has a lot of heart. He played through all of his games yesterday, even though, you know, most players, I think myself included, would have just scooped already. This one is lost.
Oh, this is really over. I think he's just trying to make our job hard. He's doing the chalky.
He's making us earn our money, except you're not getting paid
Yeah,
for
no,
this.
I'm doing this out of charity.
Really.
Huh.
Can you get, like, volunteer hours for school?
I don't need those. I can make everything I,
I
do
needed,
seem.
like-
I can make everything I do seem like volunteer hours.
All right, that's a good point.
I convinced them that streaming was volunteer hours.
Okay, well, they are really gullible.
Well, they just didn't know what it was.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't remember how I got mine.
I sang to some old people too. That was pretty good.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's very nice.
Okay. He tapped out that card. Oh my god.
Okay, yeah, really just going through the motions there at the end. There was
I had
actually
nothing to say. There was for like 5 turns. There was nothing going on. All
Even
right.
the most convoluted scenarios there could not have. Just enjoying every second of it. So I don't see this as a situation where Eselore is going to be tilting or wanting to, you know, just get everything over with and get out of here. I think he's really enjoying this, and he is still going to put up a fight. It is the Rogue versus the Mage now from Mugibaby, and this is a big spell mage. We saw him with it a little bit yesterday.
This deck looks like it dunks aggro.
It is
He's got the
sick.
copy of, well, especially this version, he's got the Tar Creepers, he's got the 1 Ice Barrier included. Obviously, you play the 2 Dragons, Furies.
It's really different than Hot Meowth's list, which is super high curve. There are no spells under 5 mana, so the Dragon Fury never misses, but it's going to be a little bit weaker against aggro. So Mugi's list, I think, is a lot better equipped to take down Eselore here.
Tar Creeper is quite a card. So, he's got a coin ping. Huh.
We could play Arcanologist, though.
Well, I assume he's gonna do one and then the other.
Yeah.
I'm just interested that he chose to coin. It didn't seem super important to do that. It plays around Captain on turn 3 by coining now, but given that his deck has pretty poor, especially turn 4 is probably going to be awkward this way, but he has a lot of 3s, so I think he's banking on drawing into a good 3 after the Arcanologist, or just developing a secret with that mana. But even then, if he doesn't have Dragon's Fury on 5, his turn 5 could potentially be really weak. And we're seeing the impact of Mugi, including the third secret here. He has 1 copy of Ice Barrier as well with this Arcanologist, and that's a pretty big deal here.
Well, he's got all 3 of them out of the deck, so if he does find that Dragon's Fury, it's just going to be Arcane Intellect that could potentially be a slip up there under that 4 mana slot. But yeah, I kind of agree. That coin could have potentially bridged the gap from one of those more awkward middle turns. If he doesn't find an Arcane Intellect, if he doesn't find any of those early minions, he could just be stuck playing secrets over the course of 2 turns, whereas Eselore is going to be developing.
He could have made a 6/6 that turn, which can't get answered. If he makes a big Edwin going into 4, it's a little awkward just because that's Polymorph turn. I would have maybe liked to see him do that. Mugi's going to hold back the secrets in favor of a ping. He's got a lot of mana to spend in his hand. I would have liked to see him get a secret out now.
He's trying to get a lot of mileage with that hero power, and I get that he won't have any actual removal until turn 6, and even then it is only removal for 3 minions, so you want to keep the board pretty compact. But yeah, like you're saying, he's got a lot of mana in hand. He's going to have to find a way to get those secrets active sometime.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that's nice for the late game, but
he's got nothing going on right now.
He's running 2 polymorphs. That would have been really fantastic for him here. And the Meteor will be a clear on the Edwin, but by that point, he'll have taken 16 damage.
Yeah, it's looking like Eselore might just run away with this. With the Cold Blood next turn, Mugibaby doesn't have any interaction onto the board. And that's going to be, if he puts it on the Edwin, which I'd imagine he will after seeing, because you want to play around Dragon's Fury, there's no polymorph. It's much better to play around Dragon's Fury, which could be in the hand, as opposed to polymorph, which can only come off the top of the deck. If he makes a 12 attack Edwin here, yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to hit him for 12 a bunch. Let's see. So he's at 34. If you deal 12 twice, so he needs to find 10 damage outside of the 2 Edwin attacks.
He's got a Firelands in hand. He's got a SA7 agent.
He's going to space it onto the 1-2. I don't like this. I think that going into Dragon's Fury turn, it was better to put it on the 8-8.
I agree. You can get the read that there's no polymorph in hand. Dragon's Fury, however, may be there, and every spell in the deck for Mugibaby is above that 2 damage threshold. So at the very least, you'd be losing 4 minions on your board, whereas you could have just stacked on that Edwin, gotten an additional 4 damage out of that.
Well, that's going to be Mugibaby's saving grace here. He's going to have to throw up this Tark. He's getting this ice block popped by doing this, right? Just on board. Yep, it's an exact
8, 13,
pop.
14,
I think
15,
it's really
16,
hard to win
18.
from here. I think he was maybe better off gambling that the Tark Reaper saved him a turn, and then he would have had to draw Blizzard into Blizzard, maybe? He was very behind. But
there
I think
was
that
a
this
series
way,
of draws that could have done
I think this way you almost certainly always lose, whereas the other way he maybe had some sort of outlier scenario where he could have gotten there.
If you go for the Creeper now, you pick up Blizzard, you pick up... Is he running Glyphs? No
this
Glyphs
deck
in the
doesn't
deck.
play
Okay.
Glyphs.
Something into Frostlich Jaina or Alexstrasza on 9. He's
I
got
think
the
it would be
Alexstrasza.
Blizzard into Flame Strike into Alex,
Okay,
probably.
yeah.
Or you could go like Blizzard, Flame... No, you need to go like Blizzard, Flame
The
Strike.
Meteor is probably not going to be enough.
Yeah, the Meteor is not going to have enough impact. It would be like Blizzard into Flame Strike. Oh, yeah, you can have Dragon's Fury. It would be like Blizzard into Blizzard, Dragon's Fury block, and then Alex or something.
Okay.
That would have been the actual line that could have... Which is obviously very unlikely given what we know about the game, but there was still a chance is the main takeaway.
Okay, so he needs to set up the block this turn, otherwise he's dead.
There are 7... Oh, okay. He actually has a line where he could get out of this. So since he has 7 casting cost spells in his deck, if he pings the Edwin and sets up the Ice Block, next turn he can go
He could Fury
Arcane...
the Flame Strike.
Well, he can go Arcane Artificer Dragon's Fury, gain the
Yeah.
armor so he's not dead, and then the board will be clear, and then he needs to stabilize one more turn to the Alexstrasza. I think that's the line he has to take, but
He's
he
got
has to ping this Edwin.
2 remaining spells in deck at that 7 mana threshold, so pinging the Edwin could set up for a Dragon's Fury with the Arcane Artificer, sending Mugibaby to 6 health total and a potential board clear here, but I don't think he sees it. This is going to be a block pop, and...
He opted to go for Blizzard as his draw here, but that doesn't... Killing an extra 2/3 if you draw Blizzard doesn't have a huge impact in my mind.
Okay, but maybe if you find you got Artificer Blizzard and then maybe Meteor's enough to clean up?
With a ping...
The positioning's still not
Yeah,
good enough.
I would have
You'd
liked
be
to
left
see him
with a
go for the
Sarnet.
Dragon's Fury out here. Also, the Dragon's Fury out didn't rely on you top decking a card, which is a really big difference. Like his line is immediately about 90% to lose because he doesn't have Blizzard in hand. Whereas the Dragon's Fury, let's see,
It's like a 2 out of...
I'll count. No.
Do the math.
1, 2, 3... 1, 2, 3,
4, 5,
6,
7,
7,
8. So 2 out of 8.
It was
so
just
1 in 4 to find
25%
it.
to work, and then he would have been dead to Leroy Jenkins, but I think he was never beating that card this game. So some optimization could have happened there. I think it was overall pretty unfavored. I think the biggest thing was just his decision to coin early. We saw that really hurt him. He didn't have plays on turns 4 and 5. If he could have coined a Meteor on that Edwin, maybe he could have worked towards stabilization, but maybe just overly passive play, like thinking I'm very favored in this matchup, which I think he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't want to take a risk, but sometimes even in a good matchup, you have to know when to take a risk.
He had a really heavy start. The only goal to get ahead of all of the AoE that Mugibaby has, and it's going to be another aggressive deck for Eselore. Eselore's brought a full aggro lineup. He's got the aggro druid, the tempo rogue, the zoo warlock, and then he's got a priest build, which is, I believe, Spiteful Summoner, big spell priest, I want to say. So he's definitely taken a full aggressive strategy with his lineup, and Mugibaby's mage deck likely will be able to pick up a win somewhere along the way.
Yeah, similarly to versus Druid, he's going to need to make bigger men this game than I think in aggro matchups. He's going to be looking to make dudes that are just outside of the range of Meteor, like 4 health minions are going to be very good for him this game going into turn 6. Going into Flame Strike turn, if he can get 5 health minions, that'll be very strong. But Mugibaby picked up the key card for the matchup, which is Dragon's Fury. Generally, Eselore will win the early game in this matchup. It's almost impossible for him not to, because Mugibaby has so little early interaction, and Eselore's deck is designed to blow people out early. But that Dragon's Fury is going to be a huge swing. Even only dealing 3 to the board, it's often going to be a board clear versus this deck.
It's going to be difficult for Eselore to find multiple board-wide buffs to be able to get above that 3 damage threshold from the Dragon's Fury, but if he can do it, then the Dragon's Fury isn't a guaranteed clear because there are 3 secrets in the deck as well as the Arcane Intellects.
Eselore has some ways to go tall onto the board here. The Corridor Creeper, the Bittertide Hydra, those are pretty impactful. Living Man is a card that this deck deals with significantly better, I would say. And Mugibaby's decision to not kill off this captain, he's going to be taking a lot of damage this turn. He might be forced to coin out this Dragon's Fury. He's just going to go for it. I like this. This is the big push. And this is difficult to deal with because everything has an awkward amount of life. Mugibaby's actually in a position where this Dragon Fury could just fail. But if he doesn't go for it, it looks like he's going to let it rip. What's it going to be? What's in the box?
Ugh.
Eselore, waiting.
Oh!
It's Arcane Intellect.
That's the failure rate right there.
And that's
there are
some of the disadvantage.
So many big spells in this deck, but Mugibaby does whiff here, and now because he gave up his coin, he can't coin into Meteor next turn, and now his curve's super awkward. He can polymorph this Bittertide Hydra, but Eselore's still dealing 7 damage every turn with the remaining minions on board.
This Arcane Artificer is a very big save for him. He's going to go to 15. He's not dead on board. If he picks up something like a Blizzard, I think he's still going to be fine this game. Maybe the Meteor will be good enough, but mostly that is because Eselore doesn't have a buff here. If he had a buff and was able to push more damage, I think it would be a different story. Now, if I'm Eselore, yes, Blizzard will be very good against you if you go all in, but you want to try and beat Meteor as well. They're about as likely because neither of them are cards you'd keep and you're going into turn 6. And Mugibaby has a ton of cards that have been sitting in the left of his hand. So I'd like to see Eselore gamble to some extent here and go really wide on the board just to try and have some game versus Meteor. I would have liked to see him play both the 1-mana minions, I think, and position in such a way where if the 5/5 got Meteored, then only the 5/5 and the 1/3 would have died. He would have had max power that way. As is, he's still on a... If Mugibaby chooses to go for Meteor, he's still on a buff draw to win. No matter how he does it.
So you would have liked to put the creeper on the end next to the mole?
Yeah, I would have put the creeper on the far left and then the dire mole next to it, and then the raven in the middle probably.
Gotcha. Then you're maybe a little bit weaker to Blizzard,
yes, you
more
would be.
resilient to that Meteor.
Maybe you're going to opt to play it safe, knowing that he'll die to a single buff if he meteors. But he can reasonably say, actually, yeah, he was dead to Roar last turn, and he would have buffed there. So he could say that there's no damage in the hand, potentially take the risk on the Meteor. But this might have just been a stronger play in his mind overall. There's the Roar. That's 8 damage. 8 plus
damage.
18, and that's 19 life.
2 damage off lethal for Eselore, 1 damage off lethal with the hero power.
Eselore opting to roar there, which was somewhat interesting, but he knows that if it was block and he just popped it and used extra damage, he would kill the second Artificer off. Mugibaby would be at 1, and Mugibaby would have no interaction because he didn't have any more Arcane Artificers, so he couldn't gain any more life. And if it was barrier, he did want to get this roar out now.
Eselore still needs to kill the Arcane Artificer.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, I would like to see him do that, certainly. And he recognizes that.
Yeah, we're going into turn 7. This is Flame Strike. This is Firelands Portal. Do not.
Okay.
There you go. I mean, okay, so going face sets up for...
It puts you way weaker to Flame Strike, too.
Maybe a block pop at 1 is more realistic then, but nah, there's no reason not to kill the Arcane Artificer here.
So you beat Flame Strike here. You want to try and beat Meteor if you can, which I think would be... It's unfortunate this Corridor Creeper wound up in the middle here.
Yeah.
I would like to see him play this Raven as well. He's going to hold on to it. That's going to matter here. If he had played that Raven out, then he would be dead if Mugibaby's best play was Meteor. But now he's in a position where he needs to draw 2 damage, which could be both Mark of Yashirages, it could be the second Savage Roar, but that's really it. And Mugibaby's starting to look like he might turn the corner. The thing is, he's very low with no defensive stabilization and no Alexstrasza, no Ice Block.
No Frostlich
like
Jaina, yeah. But there are 2 blocks.
Oh, and that's going to be it.
That's it.
The Mark of Yashiraj. We're going to Game 5. Eselore versus Mugibaby. That was close.
That was a nail-biter. If Eselore hadn't found it there, there's a lot of stabilization left in the deck for Mugibaby with the Frostlich Jaina, the Alexstrasza, the double ice blocks. It's possible that Eselore just wouldn't have had the reach if this had gone even just 1 more turn.
Spell Mage?
Oh, no,
he has Priest. Did he ban?
Priest
he must have banned Warlock. That's interesting. Some people have said they believe this Mage deck is favored versus Priest, and others have taken the other position.
From what I have heard, people believe that the Priest is quite favored in this, but the Mage somehow keeps getting the better of the Priest. We saw it happen yesterday. Maybe we could see it again right now.
I think Priest is wildly favored. I think if their combos in the top 20 cards of their deck, they almost always win, and then that's where it starts to get interesting.
We saw Sidonia versus Hotmeowth with this exact matchup yesterday, actually. Hotmeowth's Mage deck, a little bit heavier than the one that we're seeing from Mugibaby, but Sidonia's Anduin was the final card in his deck.
Yeah, unfortunate. Mugibaby doesn't have any copies of Dirty Rat. Another interesting thing to note. Dirty Ratting out Raza is basically just going to be a win for this deck in this matchup. So that's an out that he doesn't have. But for him, this Medivh is actually a big deal. I think that's a card you would keep off the mulligan in this matchup just to apply pressure because he needs to kill the Priest. If the Priest has infinite time, even if Anduin's their 30th card, they're just going to draw it, play it, and then kill you twice.
Yeah.
That's not very hard for Priest to do if you never force them to use any cards. He's going to need to get out there, force the Velen to be played with Spirit Lash, force Holy Smite, force cards like that, so that when you come to the end of the game, he can heal up, and then maybe the Priest doesn't have the damage to end the game.
If you don't put on enough pressure, maybe the Priest will just have too much time, so you need to try and disrupt the overall combo game plan. Of course, it's just find Raza, find Anduin, Prophet Velen, maximum of, I believe, 32 damage in a single turn. And Mugi does have double ice block in the deck to potentially disrupt that lethal. We'll have to see if it gets down to that point, or if Eselore just finds the combo so early that it's irrelevant.
Skoking Geist is a big deal as well. That cuts their damage by quite a bit. Since Eselore's on the coin, he can hold that if he wants for his final damage combo. Prophet Valen, Mind Blast, coin, that's 24. So he needs 2 castables along with that, which would just be like a 2-mana spell, Pain or Shadow Visions, and then a 0. So it's still not that hard to deal 30, but the thing is, without the Smite, your leftover damage is going to be very limited, so if there is an Ice Block up and your opponent Alexstrasza's, you're often going to die. You're often not going to be able to get there on the backswing. The Geist is a big deal, though. Cutting that Smite out, that's 8 free damage they often get with the Radiant Elemental, so we'll see if it matters. Wow, that would have been an aggressive pick. That would have been bold. I like killing the Novice Engineer.
Bold strategy, Mugi.
Yeah, that would have been... I wouldn't have liked that. All right, he's doing it. He played his 5-drop.
Well done.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff.
We like to see this.
Well, Eselore fans do.
Mugibaby fans hate to see Raza
Mugibaby
on
fans
5.
hate to see that. All right, let's play this guy and start getting him. Priest can't deal with 4-attack minions.
Just got to put on the pressure that you've got. Haven't found that Firelands portal. Haven't found Alexstrasza or Frostlich Jaina yet. But with the Medivh, the Guardian, maybe we can start to build up a board. The thing is, all of these big AoE spells are just going to be mostly irrelevant because Eselore is not looking to develop a threatening board state at any point during this game.
He really can't deal with the 4-attack minion. It's pretty funny. He just doesn't have 1 damage in his hand. It could go the distance. Psychic Scream is probably not going to let that happen. What I liked here was that he actually made a play that was weak to Potion of Madness, but obviously he geisted it out of the deck. So he didn't have to hedge against that and trade the 2-3 in. And he's getting damage where he can. He knows he's probably going to have to Alexstrasza himself, ultimately, to live. So he's trying to get chip damage where he can. We saw he wanted to maybe ping face over that 1-1 that one turn. And he's been pushing face with that Arcanologist. I like this. I like this aggressive play.
Yeah.
He understands that pressure is going to be where this game starts going right for him.
And because his deck does struggle a little bit with putting on that pressure, you need to find the chip damage anywhere that you possibly can. And even if it's just a couple attacks from an Arcanologist early on, maybe it's enough with a Medivh board. Maybe you can gather an offensive Alexstrasza. Who knows? He's going to have to put together a mishmash of pressure at some point during this game, but he's starting to get the job done. The Arcane Artificers can also get Mugibaby out of range of that combo. There's quite a bit of life gain for this mage.
What do you think about just polymorphing the Thalnos and denying the draw?
You really want to deny the draw here? I mean, there's so
hate it.
much draw for the Priest, but then again, how valuable is the polymorph going to be anyway?
Well, that's my thing. I think all of the removals kind of equally unimportant. The biggest thing here was just that the Skulking Geist is alive on board, which I think does matter. I think ultimately it was better to Meteor, but it was interesting how close it was. I think if this Skulking Geist wasn't protected, it would have been better.
Okay.
But now Eselore's in a position where he's using a lot of his cheap spells. He's using Coin, Silence, Circle. His damage is actually going to be fairly limited. With Prophet Valen, Mind Blast, Radiant Elemental, those are going to be the only cards he can play. Because these guys steal away all the 1-mana spells. So I believe the limit on his damage is 2, 6... Should just be 20 damage from hand is the most he's going to be able to do, which is a manageable amount for this mage deck. Arcane Artificer, Frostless Jaina. That's the Anduin off the top on turn 8, though. Things are heating up. He's going to be able to deal 20 damage, not next turn, but on turn 10 when he has his full mana. He'll probably be able to set that up. Mugibaby's going to need to find Frostless Jaina or some other defense very soon.
And Eselore, he did sacrifice some of those cheap spells to be able to cycle further through his deck, but he found the Anduin as a result, so he's going to have more time with that Anduin, which will automatically add up to more damage over time. So maybe could be a similar result as if he kept those spells and just gone for a full combo later on. Either way, it is paying off in spades. There's the Kazakus now as well. That could be a 1-mana potion. That could be more damage.
I would love to see him take a 1-mana potion. That's a way to operate sort of out of bounds of what the game should be letting him do. The Geist eliminates those 1-mana spells, but he can just create one post-Geist. He can also weave into death. He's going to be playing the Prophet Velen out now. This is really bold.
This is very, very risky. If
he doesn't have
Mugibaby
mana
had
to
an
Mind Blast. I think he may have miscounted his mana slightly here.
Oh, look, Eselore's shaking his head. He thought he was on 10, but he wasn't. Mugibaby can easily meteor away this board. Eselore's going to miss 5 damage on the Mind Blast, 4 damage on the Hero Power.
Eselore needs to stay calm. He can certainly still win. 24 damage is very doable. He has a lot of cards. He has a lot of time with the life gain he has Psychic Scream. If Mugibaby doesn't find additional defense, Eselore can still win. The biggest thing for him now is to not get upset and frustrated with himself and to keep playing good Hearthstone like he has all weekend. He should know that he can do this.
So difficult, though. You could tell with that shake of his head, he's not in that same mindset as he was yesterday. It's been a long weekend. He was down 0-2 in the series, but he's brought it back. He should be riding that high right now because this is still a winnable series for him. Even after that mistake, he's got so many cards in hand. He has so much damage over the course of a couple of turns. It's winnable, but he's going to be feeling bad after that turn.
He's going to Dragonfire. He's just looking to get himself time here. He wants to optimize the cards he uses. I'd like to see him develop the Kazakus most likely. Now that he doesn't have the Valen, taking a 5, maybe even taking a 10 is much more reasonable. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. Yeah, I think a 5 is quite reasonable here.
It's the best value for the mana cost. 10 mana, you can kind of miss on that sometimes. And maybe you don't want to spend your entire turn just playing one 8/8 minion or whatever.
That's not Frostless Jaina or Alexstrasza. Mugibaby's on a short clock. I'd say within 2 turns he's going to get this Ice Block pop. Actually, how much damage? He has 10 from the Mind Blast. Play one other card. I believe Eselore's like 4 damage off here or something. He's quite close.
Okay, so you got
He also could have picked
Mind
Resurrect,
Blast.
and that Velen did die. So if he resurrects Velen, that will be a block pop.
That's true. That's a good point.
Let's see. 2 friendly minions.
This could be big.
I don't know how much he wants to draw. I don't know how many cards he has left in his deck.
Yeah. He went pretty heavy on the cycle early on, but still he's putting on a lot of pressure here. Mugibaby going down very, very low.
I'd like to see the Lash here. I think just living is quite important. He needs time to get all of the cards out of his hand.
There's not really burn in Mugibaby's deck. You've got that Firelands portal, but Eselore has the ability to be cautious right now. He's still in the driver's seat. He's still the aggressor. So if you can't have a safe life total, might as well.
That's still not defense. Mugibaby's going to get his Ice Block popped next turn. He's going to need to find either the other Ice Block or Alexstrasza, or I think it's going to be over.
He's got another Arcanologist in the deck as well that can find that Ice Block. A couple of outs here for Mugi.
This is not that much pressure. Eselore has the pop with just the Mind Blast. He might even be in a position where he can start thinking, can I beat this Alexstrasza? Can I set up to have 15 damage extra after the thing? Let's see. He would need 4 castable cards in addition to the Mind Blast if he pops without the Mind Blast here, which would be 2, 2, 1, 3. Yeah.
He could do
Is
it.
his last card a spell? If his last card is a spell, then no. Okay.
No, it's not.
He's still going to go for the pop without the Mind Blast. I like this. If Mugibaby does have the Alex, he knows that he can just set up lethal, death it away, be in a good spot, probably even beat Frostless Jaina at that point.
Meteor off the Glimmer Root. It's pretty much irrelevant here. Eselore does get the block pop without using that Mind Blast. The Mind Blast itself is going to be 7 with the 2 off of the initial. So if Mugi finds that defensive Alexstrasza, he's got 9. He's got 11.
This draw. That's Frostless Jaina. I think that's too late. He's only going to go up to 6 HP. He's going to go to 7 with the Tar Creeper attack.
And the Mind Blast is enough.
Is 5. I think that Eselore has done it. He had a slight slip up, but he showed strong theory throughout this game. He knew to draw for the end when he knew he just needed to find it quickly enough. He used a lot of cheap spells early. Even though he may have miscounted his mana one turn, he also showed that he had the fight to win this game afterwards. I'm impressed by this game, maybe for reasons other than just the gameplay, but I think it's very impressive that he was able to persevere and stay focused even after a somewhat of a mishap like that.
I think this is a really good representation of this matchup in a vacuum, even after a Skulking Geist got rid of all of the 1-mana spells, after Eselore really blundered a turn with that Prophet Velen, missed a lot of damage on the Mind Blast. Eselore still had the damage because he had that combo early on, and Eselore is going to complete that reverse sweep over Mugibaby.